Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Good morning. Oh, I got somewhere. I was thinking I'm like super behind today, but I guess it wasn't too bad. Took me a little bit to get everything started. I had a little technical issues. Good morning, Stephen. Hey, you're here bright and early. Good job. Well, let's come and look at the charts here. I kind of got an inkling that we might see a bit of a recovery here today. At least maybe in the treasuries. So come back over here to the treasuries. Whew. Okay, so yesterday we had this big move down, and I actually took a trade on continuation. And the piece of news was that the Germans were looking at doing some sort of joint EU bond or something, and that was later denied. So I took a loss on that trade in the end when the news was reversed, but it was $18, so it wasn't too bad. I'm okay with it. I probably could have held it into the close though. Would have been okay. Look at this big old monster move overnight here. Pretty, started really late in the day yesterday. So like when the Asia started, it looks like they were just ready to go. But here since then, oh wait, no, this is wrong. This was the move that we saw, and this was the comeback. I need to reload. Do I need to? Okay, my connections are a little bit screwed up here. Let's see here. I don't know why Edge Clear is not connecting on startup. I'm like, that's not right. When I tell you, like when I come and look at the charts, this is the first time I'm looking at the charts because I know all of the news, but I don't necessarily know what the chart looked like. Well, let's wait for a second here. Come back over here to me for a little bit. I think Ninja Trader's gonna take its sweet time here. Joseph Wang tweets, what's the point of all these hodgepodge purchase operations? Bank of England, just whisper your suggested yield and be done with it. He's right. Joseph Wang knows how it works. Larry Summers tweeting a bunch here. I don't know if we really want to go into that though. Come on. There we go. Okay, so this is a little bit different. There was our move. Okay, now in the overnight, they're pushed a little bit in the Asian session, but since then they've kind of been reversing. Okay, and it looks like they have recovered the move from yesterday. So I'm kind of feeling like there's an uptrend going here. An area where it's possible to get a reversal. S&P 500 not doing so hot overnight, but recovering, so maybe it's okay. Oil topping off a little bit here, back below 90 and trying to push it again. So gold and silver, just haven't been looking good lately, right? There was this really good move. It was really good for a week, and then it's like they lose it all in a day. And then copper. Well, copper had some bad days recently, but maybe they're on the upswing. And that should mean that we're getting the dollars maybe coming out. I was like, maybe the dollar's back below 112. Nope. They're still up there. The dollar is just way too strong. Cryptocurrency is turning back up though. So every time that we've had like bear market behavior, the cryptocurrency hasn't gone down as much as it would in the past. They've been treading water somehow. Where can I download a CSV of the ES, RTH, open, high, low, close, and overnight high, low, close, like for the past year or so? You could export that yourself out of NinjaTrader. Depends on what platform you're at. Otherwise, I don't have such data, but I can get it for like the last 5 years. Although I would advise some caution. A lot of these statistics that people generate off of that kind of information is questionable. Let's say you need a lot of samples. So like 1 year isn't really enough to explain how the market tends to behave, if that makes sense. 5 years, maybe we could do it. 10 years, I think, would probably be pretty good, because a lot of these kind of stats that people pull out of it, like, you know, what are the chances of it going to the overnight high and the overnight low and all of these sorts of things. It's either that there's a fat tail to it that people don't realize, or there's a more simple explanation to why you see that behavior. And once you understand that simple explanation, it's kind of like, oh, this doesn't actually make a good trade. So for instance, the most common stat that you'll see using that kind of information is that we are like 80% chance of surpassing the overnight high or low, right? Well, the reason that happens is because there's more orders during the regular session, right? And orders move markets. So if there's more orders in the regular session than the overnight session, then it's highly likely that they will push through. But that doesn't necessarily tell you which way it's going to go, right? So it's kind of, you know, people want to think, oh, well, it's people's tendency to want to, you know, blah, blah, blah. No. Actually, any trade, any like chart pattern that is based on so-called investor psychology on a short time frame is probably, you should just ignore. Probably you should just ignore it, but I digress. But the way that I would do it, you can do it. Do you have NinjaTrader, Morgan? Because I believe in you. You guys, if you guys have watched my NinjaTrader programming videos, there, yep, and Rhythmic. Okay, so there is a indicator that comes with NinjaTrader called open, high, low, close. So that'll probably give you most of what you want. Or the other one that you can do is if you go to lizardindicators.com, and I think you can it still lets you download a few of them for free. They have one that will do like the overnight high and low and stuff, and you can set like the times where it selects it and stuff. So then you could use that indicator, and then all you have to do is export it to a CSV, which in C# is very easy. You just search for it, export to file, or write to file in C#. You'll find it. You can do it. It's not too difficult. Be good, really, really good beginning programmer project. Well, what I'm seeing here this morning, liquidity is quite a bit better than it was yesterday. So we're back to thousands. The 30-year is the micros is still a little meh, but it looks like they did catch up there in line a little bit now. A little mad about that, actually. Yesterday, the 30-year yield was like so far out of whack. It was kind of retarded. And that's why I took the trade yesterday, but it looks like it did kind of come back together. Okay, nothing too big over on Twitter. Oh. So yesterday, I was browsing through Jigsaw, and I saw like a bunch of new stuff on there, and I was like, oh hey, that's cool. Like there's a forum and stuff, and turns out that I did pick up on something new. They have the Jigsaw Hub. Yeah, chat/forum. Forum. Nope, I'm still the only person to post there. What's up with the tenure? Well, I don't know if there's anything up with it at the moment. No, I don't have my news squad going. That would probably help. I don't have any like major news today. We do have ECB's Lane speaking in about 10 minutes. We do get some Fed speakers, but that is like long after we're done. Yes. Okay, so let me go through that all again. Yesterday, there was news that broke around 10:30 Eastern time that the German government was favorable to a plan to offer a joint euro bond. And the market absolutely flipped. Like the treasuries sold super hardcore when that happened, right? So I took a trade. I was in it for a bit. I actually got some favorable excursion and I was trying to get out, but nobody was hitting me, even when I like really brought it down. It seems to me that those market makers are basically set to try and hold the inventory until the end of the session, which is kind of funny. Anyways, then later in the day, somebody from the German government came out and refuted that news. So we were being manipulated in some form or another. Some people were saying maybe it was like a trial balloon. I sure hope not. I sure hope that the policymakers over there in Germany are smart enough to know that how the market would have reacted without having to go and throw out the trial balloon. But I digress. The news reversed, and therefore the action reversed. Now, when the reversal move came, you didn't really see nearly as strong of a move in the treasuries. It seems to me like most traders were gone by that point. So you didn't get as strong of a move. But here you can see very clearly in the overnight, the treasury is kind of coming back into balance somewhere around 3.9. And we're actually at 3.9 in both the 10-year and the 30-year, which is kind of interesting. Okay, so what I'm seeing news right now is Senator Durbin is trashing Saudi Arabia. I find the whole Saudi Arabia situation very disheartening because, you know, the Democrats are all saying, they're helping Russia. They're pushing OPEC the wrong direction. You know, we need to sever our ties with Saudi Arabia. As though they didn't totally engineer that outcome. Come on. Ever since Joe Biden got into office, they were doing everything they could to piss off the Saudis. We all warned them that this would be the consequence, that relationship has worked well and that it's best to just not touch it. Now you suffer the consequences. And if you continue to push Saudi Arabia away into the arms of Russia, that is not going to be favorable for the United States foreign policy wise. Fist bump. You like what I'm saying, or are you talking about something else? This is not a fist bump. I don't like having to talk politics like this, but because I clearly have a political opinion about it. But this is a case where we just kind of have to make the pragmatic conclusion based on on Biden Saudi Arabia. Okay, yeah. We just have to make the sensible conclusion here that the Democrats have for a long time wanted to sever relations with Saudi Arabia, and they're doing it, and they're just doing a masterful job of, you know, trying to get the public to be against the Saudis, you know. That photo of him and this crown prince was rather sad. Well, yeah, like it was kind of striking that Joe Biden thought that he could just come back and do the bow and then everything would be fine. Because the Saudi US relationship was never about like shared value. It's not like every other relationship that we have with Western countries, right? Because the relationships that we have with Europe and stuff are based more on shared cultural values. We don't have many shared cultural values, if any at all, with Saudi Arabia. It's been an almost purely transactional relationship. And if you come in and you start, pressuring them on your side of the transactional relationship, it shouldn't be surprising that they completely pull away the goodies, you know? But the result is higher oil, and it helps Russia, apparently. A lot of study students that go to school here, free for them and go back. Oh, really? Well, I guess that's a good thing. I am really concerned, though, about, like, what I see. So here's the thing. Normally, when you're talking about, like, foreign policy sort of stuff, for instance, right? Like, everybody has an opinion sort of a thing, right? Doesn't seem to be the case right now. I don't think that Americans are paying attention to the moves that the Biden administration is making in the field of foreign policy, right? Which is a little suspicious to me, right? And then especially when we're seeing like big changes in policies that have been around for decades, right? And now all of a sudden it's like it's changing, and like the everyday man isn't saying a darned thing about it. A little suspicious to me. You know what I mean? A little suspicious to me. And what I see people talking about is I see people on the right talking about how we shouldn't be flirting with a nuclear war with Russia. That's what they're focused on, which I think is a terrible take, to be honest with you. To be honest, sorry, Republicans. I think that the far right is dead wrong on the Russia thing. You cannot come in and say, not come in, but you can't sit there and say, we should just let Russia do whatever it wants, invade any kind of country and bully everybody around because they have nuclear weapons, right? Kind of precedent are you setting there? I don't think so. Doesn't that reflect a shift in sentiment towards being inwardly focused and the deglobalization, asks Scott. I don't think so. To be honest with you, to be 100% honest with you, I think that Republicans are saying it because the far right forums, here's what happened. The main far right hub was the Donald on Reddit. Okay. And everything else was kind of like paled in comparison to that, the influence that the Donald had, and that ended up being kind of the central hub. Well, when you're on Reddit, you have the benefit of all of their tools to detect, certain kinds of accounts and ban them. So if there were Russian disinformation agents, the website was actively pushing against them. When the Donald was banned from Reddit and they went to their own place, it kind of scattered a little bit, okay? There's Patriot.win that is like the most it has the biggest claim to being the successor of that website because that's where the admins went, but they lost the domain. Weird story. Anyways, so that's the Donald now. It's not nearly as big, and a lot of people just went other places, right? But if you go on that forum and you look at some of the comments and stuff, there are many things over there that would never have flown back when it was on Reddit. Okay, for starters, you see a lot of people spreading the anti-Semitic stuff, which drives me crazy. I can't stand the anti-Semitic stuff. It's just such a nonsense take. The anti-Semites. Okay, so you know that stuff is going on, right? But then I'm seeing people on Patriots.win out openly supporting the Russians. There are regular posts there that are basically like, we're cheering for the Russians. Now, that's not everybody on the website that feels that way, okay? But I think that what's happening is there are these Russian disinformation agents out there pushing that line, and the forum doesn't do anything about it. They don't think they're not even looking for it. They're not sitting there and going, okay, is this account from Russia? Right? Yeah, we're getting ECB's lane coming through. We will ensure that inflation returns to the 2% target. Does the comments sound hawkish? I don't know if the market is directly reacting to him. We were kind of on the downturn before all that. So yeah. I think that the reason the right is going the way that, I mean, the right would be prone to being anti-intervention. That's always kind of been the driving force there with like Ron Paul and everything. But I would just say, if you are on the right, please do not discount the fact that Russia is intentionally trying to influence US policy on these things, and it's doing so through manipulation of social media. Because the entire line that you see shared on social media in regards to this matter makes zero sense. Why would it make any sense? Why would it be beneficial to the United States interests to come in and say, okay, you can totally invade a free country and impose, like literally start genocide in that country? We'll let you do it because you have nuclear weapons, right? It should be that Russia or any country for that matter should be terrified to rock the boat of any kind of a situation to avoid any kind of nuclear conflict. Which politicians are parroting that narrative? That's a good question, because I've definitely seen some Republicans saying things like that, but I can't remember which ones. But I think that the ones that were saying that were the people on the edge. Like, that's why I find it a little suspicious, is because the American public is by and large incredibly supportive of Ukraine. Like from a political perspective, taking the line that we shouldn't be involved in Ukraine is probably a bad political stance. Like in that it would hurt your election chances. That's why when I see Republicans come out saying like that's acting like that's the party's stance, I'm kind of like, Again, that's when I'm like, I feel kind of suspicious of it. But what concerns me is that this is going to turn into a decade-long thing. So where I was getting with this is that I'm worried that this could become a decade-long thing. U.S. President Biden reevaluating relationship with Saudi after OPEC decision. Yeah, I'm sure. What frustrates me, guys? Like, can you tell, like, there's kind of an underlying kind of current to what I'm saying that I'm kind of keeping back a little bit because it's not particularly relevant to the trade. What frustrates me is that I'm seeing policymakers get it wrong on like every tiny little thing. And it's not like these decisions are all like there weren't experts in the field saying exactly what was going to happen. And yet they still get it wrong every step of the way. How is that? How can you get it so wrong every time? Okay. So Biden administration now saying that they are rethinking their relationship with Saudi Arabia after their OPEC decision, right? That OPEC decision was supposed to be like a warning sign, President Biden. That was like, listen, if you want to damage US-Saudi relations, this is the world that you're going to live in, right? So now you're like, oh, we're going to hurt the Saudis even more. Guess what? They hold all the power in this relationship. They have almost a complete monopoly on oil output in the world. OPEC does what they tell them. Saudi Arabia has such a massive influence over what happens at OPEC. So if they decide that oil is going to be high to punish the American president, it's going to be high. And you can sit there and say, oh, we don't, we're going to rethink our relationship with Saudi Arabia. Okay, great. But how do you fix your problem? Right? You've just made the problem worse. And frankly, you've reduced your leverage, right? I'm not saying anything. I'm not some guy that has like some special insight on the oil market. Like any oil trader, I'm not very good with the oil market, but almost any oil trader would tell you this. And yet they're sitting there and they're doing it. How do they get it so wrong every freaking time? We told everybody, yeah, you're spiking the punch too much after this COVID thing. The government, you're overreacting to COVID, and there's going to be inflation as a result. And then this whole time we're getting, oh, it's just transitory, and it wasn't. I just can't. So you know what? It was something that happened in the last Federal Reserve meeting that kind of grated on me a little bit, was Jerome Powell saying, well, maybe we should have started raising rates like 6 months earlier, but does anybody really think that would have changed anything? Yes, I think it would. I think it would have. I think, yeah, we would still be having to raise rates and still be tight, but the chances of a soft landing would be so much higher if we had started earlier. So this is kind of the thing going through my mind at the moment. I was wrong yesterday about NASDAQ and the bonds. NASDAQ has a return 3.75 per year since March 2001. You might be looking at different metrics. But if you were to go from like the peak of that, and then, yeah, then it would probably be more like 3.75 per year. If you go out on a 30-year time frame, it's going to be more like 7% after tax. Wait, what? In COVID hearing, Pfizer director admits vaccine was never tested on preventing transmission? Jeez. That's weird. Okay, what do we got here in 10 seconds? I'm hearing, oh, okay, the Red Book. Red Book. Was it March 2000? Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, the dates that you choose for your time frame matters significantly, right? So if you go and you do like a 30-year game, then you're gonna find that it comes out. Let's not do that. Let's focus a little bit here. I am seeing decent amounts trading here in the 0908 area. I think that's kind of suggesting to me that I want to stay out, but it's also suggesting to me that after we form this distribution that I might want to make a play. Although I am getting concerned that the move is once again rates higher. Uptick. Does kind of look like the 30 years. So, like, once again, we're getting this thing where the 10 year is actually lagging a little bit. Isn't that interesting? A decent amount of volume is traded in the micros here at 3.922. So there was kind of this area between 05 half and 08. So from here to here, where last time we had moved through that very, very quickly. So maybe we're getting some support here. Maybe that is a little unusual. But I guess that happened so long ago. Let's see, was that 6? So it's been more than 45 minutes. Maybe this is suggesting that the liquidity had recovered from that point and that we're just kind of in a new balanced area. ECD, you're back. Welcome. Where did you go? Oh, were you here yesterday? I might not have been paying attention completely yesterday. So I don't like that right there. That move there is, kind of makes me think maybe I missed some of the best prices, but they didn't follow through. Oh, you were here about 2 weeks ago? I gotcha. I think that a lot of people, I'm starting to notice that a lot of people will come in and just watch for a little bit to see what's going on, see if I'm seeing anything significant, and then leave and go do their own thing. Because I get some of these videos get, hundreds of views, even though the concurrent viewership is around 20. Yeah, see, like I missed it. You're not a day trader, so you won't hear it, and that's fine. That's fine. Well, then what was it about the first time you were here that you liked? Jeez. So the IMF is saying stuff now. I think that may be driving this action. It's nice to listen to what other people are saying in markets. Make sure you don't echo chamber yourself. Yeah. Well, I think it would be really hard to be an active participant in markets and catch yourself in an echo chamber, unless you were doing technical analysis. If you're only doing purely technical analysis, then you could do that to yourself. So this is actually a really interesting subject because you expect earnings season to be very weak. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody does. Question is, will they be weak compared to expectations? I'm a little concerned about the stock market for later in the month, for sure. They are not coming back to my lot. Something actually weird is going on here in the micros because they should not be that close to my order. Before Thanksgiving, markets always tank. There's well, September, October, there's usually a lot of pain, right? So let's reset this. So that kind of sucks because I was looking at 923. So I would have gotten 10 ticks off of that. But 10 ticks isn't that much. It's just, no, I don't like that. Yeah, Jamie Dimon was looking for another. Well, did he say another 20% down? I don't remember him giving a number or reading that it was a number. Paper handed my ZN sell at 135. I found that last little move a little frustrating. So it's still kind of trading in a manner that I not. It may just keep going here. I'm sure there's going to be some people with some stops below 05. That's why I'm a little suspicious about it. Like, if I get in right here, I might get a little bit more. If I might get a little bit more, but then it would probably come back. Ah. Okay, so the news that we're getting from the IMF there was cuts U.S. 2022 growth forecast to 1.6 from 2.3% in July. 2023 growth forecast unchanged at 1%. The Fed is tightening until the economy breaks. Anaconda Plan Part 2. So no. Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, yes, the economy is probably going to break. But it's not like that they have to tighten until the economy breaks. It's just they have to tighten until inflation goes away. And probably by the time that they see that inflation has gone away, the economy will probably be in a recession. If we don't say that it's already in a recession, frankly. Right? But the other side of that is that I think that the US economy could be stronger than people anticipate. Well, at the moment, so to be honest with you, the whole thing about whether we're in a recession or not. So obviously the traditional metric is 2 quarters of negative GDP. But for the way that the government calculates it, there is that board that after the fact comes in and says this is when it started and this is when it ended, and that's kind of what they use in all their research and stuff. So for that number, I'm not 100% sure that they would say that, or actually I'm pretty confident that they're not going to say that the recession started in quarter 2 of 2022. I'm pretty confident that they're not. Now it could be that they say it started 3rd quarter 2022. We'll see. But the weird thing about it all is that the unemployment lags a lot, right? The unemployment lags the larger economy by quite a bit. And I think that there are some good theories that employment will be stronger than anticipated. So that's where I say it's always a little dangerous to get too negative on the economy. You know what I mean? Because the economy can prove itself to be remarkably resilient even in the most dire of circumstances. Doesn't it normally take like 1.5? Yeah, exactly. Unemployment will stay low because we have a chronic labor shortage. Yum. Well, like we talked about like a couple of the factors around unemployment last time, right? Oh gosh. Like that was some good up movement in the 10-year, but the 30-year did not pull back hardly at all. So I did not get a good spot. Chance. I could have gotten filled at 9.3, but otherwise. No, that's wrong. Okay, so the boomer generation is not the largest generation, guys. This is you've been lied to, millennials. Millennials, you are the largest generation. Millennials, you will have more impact at the end of your lifetime than the boomers had at the end of their lifetime. In fact, I think there's a really good chance that a good portion of, because here's the thing, okay? Investing, this whole like you need to invest and put your money in a 401k thing and all that started with the baby boomers, okay? Now it was not really a thing like 50, 60 years ago, okay? So the baby boomers built a lot of generational wealth, okay? And I'm not so sure that they're going to use it all, to be honest with you. Some baby boomers will be in trouble, but there'll be some other baby boomers that will have a lot to pass on, and they're going to pass it on to the millennials, right? I don't, as millennials, we've always kind of been in this woe is me because we started out in a recession and our earnings aren't as high and all of that sort of a thing. I think there's a really good chance that the millennials are going to catch up. And I think that millennials are kind of sleeping, because like seriously, yeah, the millennials will inherit a ridiculous amount of wealth in the next 2 to 3 decades. It's really ECD. It's really like the next decade, right? Like the majority of the boomers are like 60 years old right now. So in the next 10 years, they're going to retire now. It's gonna get crazy. They both have been saving their entire life in the 401ks. Yeah. Now, a lot of them didn't invest as much as they should have. So I think that there is going to be some troubles, but for some people. But here's the thing, is that millennials kind of took this kind of took the perspective that like we've been screwed over and disengaged, right? Millennials did that by and large, kind of disengaged. If millennials understood how much political power in the future they're going to have, don't you think that they would be paying attention a little bit more? I think they should. I'm paying attention. You know what though? Like, here's the thing, because I see this all the time. One of the things that's becoming like really common on the left is like, somebody will like, they say this with Jordan Peterson all the time, is they're like, well, the problem with Jordan Peterson is that he'll talk about a thing and he'll say this is the way that things are, but then he doesn't say what to do about it. Yeah, that's because that's not his job. Jordan Peterson is not a policymaker. Jordan Peterson is a scientist, essentially. He's a psychologist, but that's a science of the mind, right? So his job is to take a scientific approach to try and describe the world or psychology as accurately as they can, right? And it's up to the policymakers to take that information and use it to make sound policy, right? And that's where I am. I've realized, so there was a time when I was into politics. I've realized that my place in the world is probably not to be a policymaker. My place in the world is to be the one that watches the markets based on the policy and make predictions about what's going to happen. So I play an important part. But there's other people like, listen, I'm being a little bit ADHD, okay? Stick with me here, okay? The easy problems have been solved, okay? A lot of the easiest problems were solved before World War II, essentially, okay? And that's kind of what led us into the explosion in growth that we had after World War II. And then we discovered information technology, right? So all of the easy common sense, anytime that I see people being like, well, all we need is a politician that just is common sense, yet I'm like, well, you have no clue what's going on then, because the easy problems have been solved, guys. All of the problems that remain in our society are the ones where the answer is not so clear. There's a big trade there at 08.5. So that I'm no longer looking for a long here in the micros. The problems that we have are going to be the problems where they're unintuitive, or there are really strong forces pushing against what needs to get done, right? And so millennials, these are the problems that millennials have to solve, and they're not preparing for it. They're kind of taking this woe is me attitude, or like this I'm going to burn the whole system down sort of a thing. So they're going to get the power and squander it, is what I'm worried about. Yeah. That's what I think. I think that millennials are kind of sleeping on the amount of power that they might have 2 decades from now. Yeah, there's definitely a large separation of wealth among boomers too. And you're right that a lot of them put that money into their house. But to the point, yes, I think that there could be some trouble with the jobs market. But I don't think that is just that you have a chronic shortage of labor, because that was not really something that I was hearing people talk about before COVID. And I think that a really big portion of what's going on here is even in low level jobs where people are kind of like, well, I don't actually have to work, so I'm not going to. Especially women, I think, are can be less apt to want to work right now. Okay, so like that's this one side of it, right? I don't think that the issues where with millennials, or sorry, baby boomers retiring and creating a really tight labor market, I'm not sure if we've really seen that come yet. That's the thing, is I think that that's still like something in the future that could be a really big stumbling block for policy going forward, right? But the one thing that I have seen that has been going on for a long time is this: companies suck at hiring. Have you noticed that? Companies are not doing very good at hiring people. They come in, there is like a shortage of jobs. Like, this is the crazy thing, is that there is like a chronic shortage of workers, right? And yet you go and you apply for a job and there's still tons of people competing for that job. And the companies end up being like way too picky about what they're looking for. So like a lot of the best applicants get filtered out from their process. It's basically like what's going on here is this larger theme that I've talked about on this channel for a while, which is that we live in an age of abundance, and human brain is not well adapted to a world of abundance. The human brain is geared towards a world of scarcity. The human brain is, if you don't eat the food now, it's not going to be there and there's going to be a famine. That's what the human brain is geared for. When you come into a world of abundance, it's a completely different thing, and we don't know how to deal with it. And so you can see it. It's basically like you see it in the dating world with OkCupid, right? It's like women end up only going after like the top 20% of guys, and then they're like, oh, why am I still single? Right? Companies are doing the exact same thing. They're doing the exact same thing. They're too picky. They don't know how to filter the applicants properly. And then they don't find the applicants that they want, and the job goes unfilled. It's happening. I just got a phone interview request for a job I applied to 4 months ago. Sorry, bro, I already got it. Yeah, that's crazy. And I've had that happen too. Like, I can't tell you how many recruiter calls I get, man. And that's the thing, is that somewhere out there is a job that I am the most qualified person for in the world, or at least in the state. At least in my state, I'm the most qualified person for, and they're not even, I'm never even going to know about it. And if I applied to it, I might not even get in the running because of the way that some companies are doing their hiring process. So you got these HR people that aren't very technically knowledgeable, and they don't really understand how to use these computer technologies that they're using. And then on top of that, I don't think that companies really actually have a super solid hiring process. Only the companies that are like at the very tippy top, like a Google or a Goldman, that really have the hiring down. And even with Goldman, not entirely sure that they had the hiring down. So I still felt that it was kind of like, oh, you take a couple of people and you make that their job. But like, how much learning and education have they actually put into it? Hiring is broken. Yeah. And that's why I think so many jobs are going unfilled. I think some jobs are being put out there that they don't actually intend to fill them, is another thing that's going on. But that might be less and less common. You heard of or read What Color Is Your Parachute? No, I have not. This is an interesting article that plays into all of this. From The Hill. Why Generation Z may not be as woke as most think. I think this is probably true. One of the most popular ideas in American politics is that a large majority of voters under 40 are, quote, woke. Originating in the black activist community during the 1960s, the term intended as a signal to other black Americans to watch out for police brutality and systemic racism became more prominent during the 2014 Black Lives Matter movement. Today, it has become a catch-all for being progressive or liberal and is more likely to be used pejoratively. Pejoratively, I think is actually the correct way of saying that. Used negatively. Conservative politicians have made wokeness a major talking point, and some, such as Florida governor and prospective presidential candidate Ron DeSantis, have pursued aggressive policy agendas to reduce what he and others consider to be indoctrinating effects of wokeness on K-12. As researchers of political attitudes of different generations, we think the portrayal of young voters as woke on all issues is wrong, particularly for those 18 to 24. This group, referred to as Gen Z, is not a monolithic group and has attitudes that run contrary to their depiction, which raises real questions about how they may impact politics in the 2022 midterm elections and beyond. Gen Z has been shaped by mass shootings in schools, horrible instances of racial injustice, and the COVID-19 pandemic. This, according to researchers, have made them more tolerant of differences, empathetic to the needs of marginalized people, and desirous of government being more active in solving societal problems, all of which are left-leaning ideas. We found in recent Meredith polls that on many social issues, abortion rights, protection for LGBTQ persons, legalization of marijuana, Gen Z voters do possess some of the most liberal views. In the most recent Meredith poll, almost half of Gen Z respondents wanted to expand access to abortion beyond what is guaranteed by Roe v. Wade, while only 29% of respondents, millennials, felt the same. However, deeper examination of the polling data reveals some significant gender differences within Gen Z. Males are significantly less supportive, 30% less, of expanding abortion access or even retaining the provisions established under Roe v. Wade than Gen Z women. Recent political science research has found that Gen Z is more likely to prefer women and black candidates for political office to white male candidates, which seems to confirm the view that wokeness and its accompanying dislike for white males have infected Gen Z. Our findings, however, do not support this research. We found similar differences between Gen Z men and women on the topic of women as political leaders. Over 40% of Gen Z men prefer a male political leader, the highest among men of any generation. Well, 35% of Gen Z women prefer a female political leader. Why do Gen Z men prefer a male political leader? The polling data shows 66% of Gen Z men believe women aren't tough enough for politics. On the other side, 75% of Gen Z women said women's toughness is not one of the factors keeping women out of politics. Instead, 90% of Gen Z women believe there are not more women in political office because men hold women back. No, this is an interesting thing. So, like, we do know that there are some gender differences on this thing, and there's even maybe some evolutionary explanations for it, but men tend to be more interested in what is empirically true, whereas women tend to be more interested in what they consider to be morally right or helps group cohesion. right? And this seems to match up with what traditional gender roles have been in the past, which is that the man had to be out there working hard, right, and performing, whereas women, being more in the home, were more concerned about getting along with others, right? Are you a man? Of course. Women care about feelings. So there is like a gender difference here, and them saying, I think that what's happening here, I think what they're trying to say, because ECD is saying lol this article, and I am kind of like, they're saying like, oh, actually, here's all of this evidence that refutes our premise, but then, you know, and the things that you're getting in through here are kind of like, maybe not. But here's what I think is happening. Our society over the past 10, 20 years has become more feminine. And by that, I mean the policy decisions and the prominent social issues and the attitudes in general has been more on the female side of being concerned about group cohesion, etc., right? Although there's kind of this problem that having that kind of cohesion across the country as diverse as the United States is kind of a problem, and perhaps the attempt to try and create that cohesiveness through social media has backfired, right? But so I think what's going on with Gen Z is that they're growing up in a society that is more feminine than ever, and some of the men are rebelling against it, essentially, right? So it seems to me like the general view of it is that Gen Z is more woke than almost any other generation, but there are still men in Gen Z that don't like that. Let's continue reading here. Although gender differences exist on some policy issues within Gen Z that make it challenging to characterize the generation as uniformly woke, it is Gen Z's views on democracy and the potential use of political violence that are stunning. When asked whether it was more important to have a strong leader or to protect democracy, over half of Gen Z respondents stated that it was more important to have a strong leader. No other generational group was close to 50% in preferring a strong leader over democracy. That's interesting. That's not what I would have expected at all. Also, when asked if force should be used if the American way of life was disappearing, 2/3 of Gen Z respondents agreed, while no other generational group had a majority of respondents in favor of using force to protect the American way of life. That's also a little weird and not what I would have expected. Well, I'm not so sure that they're being completely honest with us about what the exact question was there. The results from our work suggest there is a strong conservative element within Gen Z on policy issues and the role of women in politics, a shift to more traditional views among the male population. Illiberalism is also strong within Gen Z, both in males and females, which should be concerning to all Americans. Okay, you're right, because both of those things, it's saying that you want a strong leader and using force to protect the American way of life is not liberal. That's true. Coupled with the fact President Biden's approval among Gen Z has dropped precipitously from the highs enjoyed by former President Obama, it is apparent both sides have mischaracterized this generation greatly. That maybe they're making a good point here. Why does this particular track have such a big section of silence at the end of it? Well, whatever. Okay, so we did have that pushback there. I'm not seeing super strong volume on it, except for maybe in the 5 driving it. That is kind of in line, though, with what we're seeing in the spreads. The spreads are steepening. So we continue to see selling in the 30 and buying in the 5. So that does not, seeing this big up move that we saw, that does not mean that the downside is done. However, we are to the S&P 500 open now, so we're in a little bit of a time frame of a little bit more uncertainty. Yeah. Anyways, I digress. I think that the younger generations are so used to feeling missed, feeling overlooked and powerless, that when they get the power, they're not going to know what to do with it. And I think that if you're a millennial, that you need to start preparing. And that now is the time you're in your 30s where you have an increased ability to see the world and understand it. And you need to go beyond surface level to really understand specific issues and how we can potentially resolve them with an eye towards the potential unintended side effects of such policies, because these are complicated problems. These are problems that might involve advanced math and game theory and stuff to figure out. Like get a passport. Well, yeah, you might want to have a passport too. Okay, so as soon as I said that, they streamed right back up here, man. I think that the Europeans nope. Yep, as soon as I go for the sweep, they bury me. It is volatile, isn't it, Andre? Where was I? That was on the Hill. That was on the Hill. It was an opinion article on the Hill. Nick Timiro's congressional Democrats who downplayed inflation worries when approving large fiscal packages last year are mostly steering clear for now of criticizing Fed Chief Jay Powell for raising rates rapidly. He's doing the best he can. This from Kate Davidson, a story. Okay. Well, this may yet shake out, but that was a very, very poor as she goes, wasn't it? The backwash on this is really jarring. I'm personally convinced that politician mismanagement has been so consistently bad that it goes beyond incompetence to intentional. Nah, I understand what you're saying, but I think the reality here is that Joe Biden has performed exactly the way that he said he would in his campaign, right? The policy decisions that he's making are exactly what he ran on, right? It's just there's all of these other things that he's doing that kind of stem more management wise. And okay, so like here's the thing, is you would expect with as turbulent as Donald Trump's presidency was, that Joe Biden would be running a pretty tight ship and everything. But when you look inside the organization of the White House and everything that's going on there's been especially on Kamala Harris's side, There's been so many leaks of disorder over there and everything. It really does look like that Joe Biden is not a very good manager or a very strong manager, and that as a result, it's just like chaos within the White House. So, at least for Joe Biden. Now, on this other thing, like mismanagement has been so consistently bad, I think there's a couple of things going on here. Number one is that there are a lot of politicians that just don't know what they're doing. Like the politicians on the left clearly do not understand the economics around inflation, because they're like, oh, we need to spend more money to deal with inflation. Then we need to pay for we need to subsidize these things now to pay for inflation. That's like, you can't say that unless you're clueless, right? If it was intentional, you would come up with a better argument. You would have all this technical mumbo jumbo to get the public to like ignore what they know and go along with it, right? But the way the politicians do it, it makes it seem like they're just doing the knee-jerk reaction that they think people will like, and that they're just clueless. Yeah, every congressman should be required to take it. I think so. I think that there should be a test that you have to pass to be in government. I would like that, at least. I know that there's some downsides to that, but I would like that. There be a test. But there's this other thing, which is that I think that the majority of billionaires out there are trying to make the world a better place. I think that George Soros thinks that the manipulation that he's doing within the politics of various countries, everybody acts like he's just doing that to make money. He just wants to be richer. Now, I think that he genuinely believes that those things will be beneficial for the world as a whole in the long run. Okay. The problem is twofold. One is that being a billionaire kind of causes you to overestimate your abilities. You get this idea of who you are and what you can accomplish that is like way inflated. And so when you're going beyond your areas of expertise and into areas where you're completely clueless, like nobody tells you, right? And then the other side of it is that you become so disconnected from the everyday person to the point where like everybody that you're engaging with is rich and you're not seeing everyday people anymore. And so you have absolutely no way to understand what is actually going to be beneficial to the people, right? So like a lot of companies, they have like this client focus sort of ideal. But for some reason, when we're talking about the voters, it's not client focus when we're talking about helping the middle class, for instance. It's like, well, we know better. But you don't. Because what we find is that the decisions that they make tend to just benefit the rich the most. And I do think that a lot of it is a mistake. That they are so caught up in their bubble that they can't understand, because what they're thinking of is like, oh, we need to be good corporate citizens. And so you've been in a company and they have those sorts of things and they talk like that. And so that's how they're thinking about policy, instead of the way that the everyday person does when you're at the pub, or like here on the stream and we're just talking politics, right? I've been behind gates at a movie talking with people who try to be normal. Well, okay, so here's a third thing, Matthew, is that some of the richest people in the world are not normal. They are not normal, and they don't seem to understand some basic social cues and stuff. Like Elon Musk is probably borderline ADHD / autistic, right? Bill Gates, I don't think has any such disorder like that, but he's just not the the best social person. Bill Gates is maybe a little, I wouldn't call him like, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but his like psychopathy is a little bit higher than the average person, right? So like I remember reading a story, Bill Gates, he was, they're driving out in the middle of nowhere. He sees a bunch of construction equipment on the side of the road. So they stop, pull off on the side of the road and just play with construction equipment all night, right? That's psychopath behavior. Doesn't mean they're just going to go and kill anybody or anything like that, but I think he has slightly higher psychopathy than other people. And that means that he is less capable of understanding what people actually need. Right? I think that I see the same thing in Mark Zuckerberg, right? The rich guy that I actually respect the most is probably Jeff Bezos. So Jeff Bezos is like, if you ever watched the videos of him being interviewed before he became rich, this is just a quirky guy that really enjoyed business and did it really, really well. And then after he became rich, he pushed himself to become a really good manager, and he did a good job at it. But he still suffers from the issue of being kind of disconnected from the public and being old, frankly, too. You say that Bill Gates has Asperger's, though? When I watch, all I'm saying from that is that when I watch Bill Gates speak, I don't see anything that looks like that to me. When I see Elon Musk speak, I see ADHD/autism. When I see Donald Trump speak, I am 100% convinced. I really thought that after Donald Trump was out of office, that we would get some expose revealing this, that this was what's going on, but we haven't heard it. Maybe it will be after he dies. I am 100% convinced that Donald Trump is ADHD. He's severely ADHD and he needs to take some Adderall. No. See, bipolar, people with ADHD are often misdiagnosed as bipolar because the ADHD causes them to be impulsive. That's well documented that he does. I don't know if it's well documented. I've certainly seen rumors of it, but I've never seen a source that proves conclusively that he was on stimulants. But certainly a number of things that he said, especially around like performance and debates and things like that, that I think strongly suggest that yes, he's on stimulants, or that he has stimulants that he doesn't always take them. Alon to me feels like he wants others to think he's on the spectrum and acts that way. I thought ADHD was like a fallacy. My doc won't hook me up with the Addies to save my life. So, man, the history of ADHD treatment in the United States and everything is a big subject, okay? But the general gist of it is this. In the 90s, a lot of people started to be diagnosed as ADHD, and so people thought that it was being overdiagnosed. But when we actually go into the details of the condition and all of that sort of stuff, it's probably more likely the case that it is underdiagnosed, or which is to say the number of people that have ADHD and never receive treatment is significantly higher than the people that didn't have ADHD and were put on pills. Okay? Significant difference. The other issue is that the public generally thinks that it's like bad parenting. They're like, oh, well, if your kid is hyperactive, just slap them on the head and tell them to sit down. Like in South Park, they make jokes about that, right? But the reality is that ADHD is one of the most studied conditions out there. And we know specific genes that predict for having ADHD. And why those, and we know how those genes contribute to the condition. So at some point, it's probably not the case right now just because genetic testing is still too expensive. But at some point in the future, they will test your DNA to see if you have ADHD and then tell you which medications to take based on which genes you have. So it's absolutely a thing, and there are some tests that you can do to like really conclusively prove that you have it, right? And from that point, because it's largely genetic, it has nothing to do with like what the parents do. So that's all kind of a difficult thing. ADHD is just modern day term for daydream. No. Okay, so let me try and explain to you why ADHD is like so much more than that. So ADHD is really what's going on is that your frontal lobe, this part of your brain, is basically not developed as fast because it's not getting enough dopamine and norepinephrine. Okay, so a person with ADHD, when it comes to executive functioning tasks, is behind most other people. Okay, and they can catch up in the end by the time they get to adults, and that's why a lot of people, that once they become adults, once they reach their 30s, they don't have it anymore. But a lot of people just never, you know, it's not something to be sarcastic about. You're saying I'm just being sarcastic? Anyways, so they're behind on this frontal lobe. So one of the most clear signs for ADHD that I would look for, like if you're looking to see is somebody ADHD, okay, is emotional regulation. So your frontal lobe is responsible for emotional regulation. So a person with ADHD, they will have a thought, and it might not be a pleasant thought, like that they didn't like something that you just said, or they want to say something in a conversation. They'll just blurt it out, right? Or like, you know, the other day, for instance, my wife was complaining about how difficult it is to take the girls to acting things, because they have to memorize lines, and they have to do songs, and they have to go to the practice, and they have to do tryouts, right? And my family, when I was growing up, they were all into the acting thing, and we felt after the fact that it was a little bit detrimental to the family, because it meant that we spent less time as a family during critical formation years for the younger kids. And so I said, I didn't think that my stepdaughter was, I thought that she was upstairs. So I just blurted out, what if we just not have anything to do with thespianism at all now, right? So it's kind of a mean thing for me to say, and not something I'd want to say like directly to my daughter, that like, oh, the thing that you're most interested in life, I would very much prefer that we have nothing to do with it, right? But that's the sort of thing that you do with ADHD, right? So for Donald Trump is famous. The stories that we hear from inside is like him throwing quote unquote temper tantrums, right? That somebody will say something to him and he just gets totally worked up over it, right? And sometimes people will just say things to him to placate him, right? That sounds like ADHD 100% right there. Difficulty with emotional regulation. Andre, you're scaring me, Seth. What? What did I do? Eventually we get to a point where we throw up our hands and ask, what is neuronormal anyways? Well, so did you know that people with ADHD make like 40% less than their peers overall? Overall, they make 40% less than their peers. Individuals with ADHD, women with ADHD, diagnosed ADHD, are twice as likely to get pregnant in high school. Twice as likely to become pregnant in high school. Can you believe that? like some of the stats on how negative ADHD can be on your life are like really crazy. Like really kind of makes you so the whole point that I'm trying to get across here is like it's a serious condition that has a really negative impact on people's lives. And if we can identify that condition and treat it, because it is very treatable with a combination of drugs and behavior modification therapy, okay? And then they can be productive people, in fact, maybe even more productive than your average person, okay? Once they've taken care of those problems, right? And then they can have a substantially improved quality of life. So it's important for us to not trivialize it and understand the seriousness of it, right? And that it's treatable and that it's not their fault, that it is a genetic thing, right? Because if we do that, we understand the condition itself and the seriousness of it, we can make such a huge impact on people's lives. Because I've done well, because it was identified very early in me. I probably could be doing better in my life than I am now, but I didn't take it during college. If I took it during college, maybe I get 4.0s during college, and maybe I would have done greater things after that, you know? But by the time it was rough and I wanted to move on. But there are many people that never get diagnosed until they're adults and they've already ruined their lives, you know? So think about that. Sarcasm almost always goes over my head anyways, actually. Right? That's what. So because I'm ADHD, as a kid, I never picked up on those things because I'm just not paying attention. Oh, I don't understand Matthew's comment there. Now I'm seeing it's a response to ECD. We'll get to a point and ask, what is neurotypical anyways? Yeah, aliens drop in and say show is over. A huge part of healing ADHD is social contact, which is almost humorous. Most don't want to leave the house. That's probably true. Nothing else. I liked the Drax character in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, yeah. Okay, so there was a little bit of a bounce. We've come back down to the bottom end of this range, but we have not broken. The 30-year did take a tick lower. I'm still seeing very much a push and pull here where the 5-year continues to see buying, but the 30-year is selling. Nick Timiros. Part of the challenge is that blaming the Fed for high inflation, as a handful of progressive lawmakers have done, would amount to saying the Fed should have responded faster to counteract their fiscal policies. Oh, it's talking about why the politicians are having a hard time trying to blame the Fed. A related issue is these lawmakers were downplaying inflation risks as they tried to pass the president's signature BBB spending measure. They were trying to persuade Joe Manchin, who was the only Democrat publicly opposing Fed's monetary policies. It is a real conundrum, isn't it? That's interesting. It's interesting that they realize that. So I thought that they were still in denial that we couldn't just print money forever. Like Elizabeth Warren seems like she's thinks that we can just print money forever. They're saying, oh, the Federal Reserve is going to push us into a recession. Yeah, that's what you have to do. You have to bring supply and demand into alignment. Yep. Monetary policy is meant to support fiscal policy. It can't overcome bad fiscal policy. That's the great way to put it. When I watch this stuff on TikTok, and I think it's coming from the left, although I'm not 100% sure, it's like, I think that some people have become so misinformed on certain policy issues that it's really hampering their ability to be able to interpret the current economic environment. Because, for instance, there's was a video that did quite well on TikTok in the finance space, where this guy was saying that inflation is going to be decreasing here. Basically, he's like, well, the month-over-month numbers were less over the last few times than it was a couple of times ago. So as those larger months come out of the number, you're going to see the year-over-year inflation number go down. And it's like, well, yes, but one, the Federal Reserve pays more attention to core inflation, and two, the month-over-month number is what the markets react to. So if you're trying to invest off of what this guy is saying, you're going to get it like dead wrong, right? I see this all over the place because the left is convinced that inflation is 100% the fault of companies just raising prices higher than they need to be, right? So if that's the case, then it doesn't make sense that the Federal Reserve should tighten monetary policy or anything like this, right? But they've been because when you look at there's been many economic analyses of this, and every single one that I've seen has said that the fiscal policy was a contributing factor, right? I'm seeing here they're pushing the lows again here in the 10-year, and not taking a whole lot of volume for each tick. It's again, we're like ticking down on less than 500 contracts sometimes. That one was 600, but you get what I mean. There's still some question. A break below 05 would be a previous pivot. Sometimes there's stops below those, right? Companies are overcharging though, but this is an issue of the buy side of the market is not in control. If the buy side no longer drives the market, then it's no longer free. Well, so like the whole issue here is that are companies overcharging? How do you determine what is a fair price? You see, do you get what I'm saying? The whole concept of overcharging or price gouging is ridiculous, because how do you determine what a fair price was? That's the whole point of having a market, is so that we can come to an agreed price. And we know that the price that we come out with from the market is not reflect all available information still, right? But it's the only way that we can come to a price that's like even reasonable to run an economy on, right? So to say that companies are charging more than they should is just not an empirically provable thing, right? But on top of that, the whole thing is that companies don't sit down and say, okay, well, we feel like we should start overcharging people for our product now because we're super greedy. No, what they do is they do these curves and they calculate what the optimal price is. Like they know based on their research, if they increase the price to this, how many people will stop buying their product? And they look at, based on the market research that we have, and they do these curves and they find what the price makes them the most money based on how much they make and how many people will buy it, and they optimize it. It's that simple. That's the way that the majority of products, the price is determined, is that they pick price based on that. So they can only raise prices if the market supports it. So the reality is that we created a market where they could get away with jacking the prices up, right? You finally got trades, quotes, and prices, and there's some pretty crazy, right? But here's what I would tell you, Andre B. Just plow through it. Okay? Like for us, this book. I love this book, guys. For people like us, that book is like the Bible. It really is. And so think about how you read the Bible, okay? First time you read the Bible, if you were a kid, I don't know if you grew up religious or not, but like probably the first time that you try reading the Bible, you're like a teenager and you're just reading through it and your eyes probably glaze over and like whatever they're talking about is maybe not interesting, or you don't understand what's going on because you don't have the historical context. And what do? You just keep reading it, right? And then you come back a few years later and you read it again, and now you have way more context and you understand what they're saying way better, right? So that's what you should do, is you should just, anytime that you feel like you don't understand the math, just keep reading. They are really, really good at giving you summaries at the end about what are the significant things that we learned from all of this, right? And they're kind of painting a picture that is like, this is like the whole of what we know about market microstructure. So once you've finished reading the book, you have so much more context. And then you're going to go back, you're going to watch my videos on it, or you're going to listen to me say things during the stream, or you're going to go back and reread the book, or you're going to be reading somebody else's research, and it's going to be like, oh, well, they're bringing that up because of this, or you know, that's referring to this, and yada, 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 right? So just push through and read it, because you're going to be coming back to it, right? We're talking about the book Trades, Quotes, and Prices, Financial Markets Under the Microscope by Jean-Philippe Bouchot, Julius Bonnard, Jonathan Donnier, and Martin Gould. And this is the premier work on market microstructure. They are essentially summarizing 30 some years of empirical market microstructure research. Okay, so like if you were to become a block trader at a large bank, they might not necessarily use that book, but the stuff in that book is what they would be teaching you. The math behind those things. That's how that book is how the banks make their money market making. Straight up, market making and block trading. That book has the information. Think about that, how significant that is. Okay, they're not using these chart patterns and all of this sort of analysis sort of stuff that we typically think about, right? It is they don't need that stuff, because they can utilize the actual market, like how the market actually functions to their advantage. And that book explains how. And that book is kind of the basis of what I do. So like the way that I trade from the very beginning, from the very beginning, was based on things that block traders at Goldman Sachs told me. Like I had some opinions based on what I had read on technical analysis and things like that. But they had told me things like, you know, like that the news really matters, and that they spend most of their time, especially after work, reading and researching things and understanding the market. And they also showed me where they had these databases, the database that showed how their impact would be. And they explained to me how their challenge was that when they trade, they move the market, and so their job is to move the market as little as possible, and that they have all of these tricks to do that, right? So I knew the general gist of it, right? And that's kind of how I started my trading out, and that's kind of why I went in the direction of order flow. But when I read that book, now I understood the subject to a level comparable to what the block traders were, and I understood why they were telling me all of these things, and it gave me confidence to actually do it the way that it needs to be done. Okay, there is something a little wild going on here, so I was saying a little bit below 05, you might see stop runs and stuff like that. Well, I don't know if that was actually stops that pushed us down here or what, but we sure came down here quickly, didn't we? We sure came down here quickly. Seth, do you also do valuations on equities? Okay, not really. Doing a little bit more fundamental analysis of companies is something that I would like to spend more time on, but I just don't have the time, and so I've made the conscious decision that that's just not for now. Right. I'm spending more of my time doing machine learning stuff and programming stuff and team stuff, because I'm starting to, I see myself more and more as, you know, the leader of a small team to some extent. And so I'm trying to read things that leaders of small teams are supposed to be reading to do better at their jobs, right? That's kind of what I'm focused on. But, you know, like for instance, I've read When Up on Wall Street has a lot of good information about doing that kind of analysis, right? Jim Cramer's book Mad Money also talks about that stuff, but more from an active management perspective. So I kind of know general stuff about how we try and value companies and bonds and all sorts of instruments, but I don't regularly go in and run things on spreadsheets and stuff. No, so it's just usually not relevant to what we're doing. Right. We're interested in the short-term moves, and so to us, what matters the most is things that can predict future orders. Okay, so right here at around 01, we are indeed getting an apparent liquidity hole. It reminds me of my college textbook prices. Yeah. Yeah. It is a postgraduate level book, 100%. I don't think that any of the math that's in there is stuff that you wouldn't know from going through like your basic calculus 1 and 2. But it's really difficult to follow. Yeah, it's called Trades, Quotes, and Prices by Jean-Philippe Bouchot. Bouchot is the man. Let me tell you what. I like that man so much. We talk about, you know, like who are people in the industry that you admire and stuff. And some people, they'll admire like hedge fund managers, which is yeah. Okay. Those are the most successful people in our field. A lot of people will admire other popular creators in our space, which to me, like what we're doing here on day trading, I think is child's play compared to what the professionals do. And I think that our understanding of things is just kind of is childish compared to what they do at the institutions. That's why this book is so great, because it's giving you that postgraduate level kind of education that's relevant to trading, that everybody in trading is looking for and can't seem to find, right? You're like, oh, I've learned about these charts, but it's not really helping me. It seems like there should be something more sophisticated than that, right? That's it. It's that book. I'm not even joking. I know it seems like I'm like really talking up this book. I wish, you know, maybe he makes money off of it. I wish I made money off of it. I should put it like on an Amazon thing and get a commission every time you guys buy it. Cause it's just like, I'm telling you, all traders go through this thing of searching for information. Where's that piece of information that I can base my strategy on that's going to tell me that's going to give me an edge, right? Or is going to explain the markets, because I have so many questions. There's so many things about the markets that like maybe I believe them, but I can't prove it. You can't prove it, right? And there's got to be something out there. Like these people at the big institutions, they must know what's going on. What are they doing? And are we really, this price action trading strategy, is that really taking advantage of what tendencies that people actually do that the banks are able to take advantage of and things like that, right? You're searching for it and you can never find it, right? It's that book. You read that book and all of those questions you have about why is the market behave the way that it does? Why is it so freaking hard to trade? Why are markets so confusing sometimes? They answer it all in this book, and it's like pure math backed up by empirical evidence. Do it, and I'll be the first to buy it. Trades, Quotes, and Prices. Financial Markets Under the Microscope by Jean-Philippe Bouchot. And if you read that book, you understand more about how the market functions than all of these other YouTube gurus, other than myself, of course, because I'm the only person on YouTube talking about this. But all these other people being, providing trading education and being market experts and stuff like that, they don't know squat. You read that book and then you're going to understand things. And it'll almost drive you crazy, the things that you see retail traders say, because they really don't understand what's actually going on. They have all of these theories based mostly on what they want to believe rather than the evidence. Michael Berry is tweeting a storm here this morning, posting a bunch of his comments from a long time ago. I don't know if we have time to really go into them. Oh man, I was hoping to get 30 and it come back really hard. Again. So like I'm still seeing this steepening. What are we at? 812? Yeah, okay. I think I may actually have to bail on this because I'm seeing enough flow. I need to be wary about the counter trade, right? That somebody's coming in and pushing the market the other way. In the beginning of time, I would watch Axia futures. They seem very technical based. Do you think they're just collecting desk fees? So I think that Axia's primary edge is understanding markets and trading macroeconomic news. Their top trader, I know for a fact that their largest trader that's making money off of like big economic numbers and news releases. Shoot, that was a big buy there at 05 and the market is reacting to it, and I've given up 2/3 of my profits. This sucks so bad. And it's coming back. Well, the only consolation is that big order at 05 may whipsaw us back to that spot a little bit. I have a few more thoughts on Axia, but I'm going to need to watch this here for a second. Hold on. Always wary of people who have a course of selling them. I mean, I don't think that it's necessary that anybody, that has a course or a book or whatever is full of crap. Okay, so their top trader, he will kind of do market making methods most of the time, and then he'll make big money when they have big macroeconomic events, right? And when you go and you watch their videos where they show like a trader making a big trade or whatever, it's always around these macroeconomic events. Okay, so their primary edge is trading news, just like us. Now they also have like these technically based setups and stuff. There is maybe something to some of them, because a lot of their setups do seem to be set up to identify and take advantage of the inverse sine law, where you have a strong meta order down and then you have an opposing meta order of the opposite direction ends up pushing it more. So the way that they do things kind of would have a tendency to take advantage of that. But I don't think that they've read that book, for instance, right? They would maybe approach things a little bit differently. But the larger thing, like, oh, because they're providing a course, does that mean that they don't actually have anything? I think that the reality is that even if you're really good at what you do, that being a prop shop is really, really hard. It's really, really hard in these, like, there's a reason why most of the prop shops shut down, right? And so to keep the reason that Futex went down was that they had taken these huge losses and weren't able to pay their traders out the money that the traders had in the firm, essentially, right? So coming in and having the education side and their monthly subscription side and everything to give the prop shop more stability is a smart idea. I do agree that some of the best gurus are the ones that don't charge exorbitantly or give you your money back after reaching a certain point. They're not trying to make money from teaching, just ensure buy-in from students. Well, here's what I would just say, because like people have all sorts of reasons to do education and not. Okay. What matters is the thing that they're teaching empirically based, right? Because so many of the books and everything that you read out there is just one guy's opinion of how the market behaves. And they'll come in and they'll show you a chart and they'll explain it to you on this one chart of this one situation where it worked out the way that they thought that it does it. But they never prove that this is the behavior that the market tends to follow. Never happens, right? It's the thing that they're teaching empirical or not. Can they come in and show you the math and the statistics to prove that this is a profitable strategy? Actual prop shops have rules to follow. CME has a whole set of rules they need to follow, so prop shops keep it close to the chest instead of advertising or soliciting. One of them is that they can't charge their traders fees. Oh. Gotta admit, it's a crazy business model, though. Some watch YouTube videos, drop some beginner courses full of Googleable market material, get paid to continue learning trading risk-free, essentially. So if you get a large enough subscriber base, I guess. But I don't think that Axie is making their money primarily from the YouTube. Compared to as big and as prominent as they are, their channel is actually really small. I think that their channel should be much larger than it should be. Or their channel should be much larger than it is. And even from the course sales, I think that you're talking about, you know, it's like $1,000, but I don't think that there's like thousands or millions of people buying these, right? There's a couple, it's a few dozen a quarter. It could be wrong. Maybe they have hundreds and hundreds of students, but By prop shop, we're talking SMB, Futex, and Axia. Those are the only ones that I really think qualify for the kind of prop shop we're talking about. Well, this sucks, man. So it's not like I didn't think about getting out there up at 30. I just thought that I had way more time, and then it comes all the way back. That catches me so often. I really need to work on that. I was kind of sitting there thinking, well, I've made 30, so like that should be enough for now. It could go further, but I would be okay with taking a profit here. I can kind of see a liquidity hole forming, so let's just give it a second and see if I can get an easy out here. And then it came back, so like I was trying to get out at 20 and 10, and I had to take a small loss on it in the end. That really sucks. Have that much MFE and not take a profit was really poor trading on my part, wasn't it? Although I think that the overall trade was pretty good. I had 10 ticks against me. I got 30 ticks in my favor. I had the overall read of the flows and everything correct. And I was even knew what the flows were on the pushback. Like I knew that possibility of it coming back, but I was way less aggressive than I should have been, huh? I don't think we're saying anything about them. Prop shops like Jane Street and Optiver are a little bit different, right? Because those are quant prop shops. But we're talking about a prop shop where you become a discretionary trader and they just give you money to trade. It's basically like SMB and Axia are your choices. So you're talking about the business model. I think you guys are kind of focused on the wrong thing. But the way that these work was, pre-2000, they'd have, hold on, it's like gonna flip around here. That was a really quick pushback all of a sudden. I think that I'm going to take the position of it's too late for me to trade, and I'm not sure if I'm trading this super well, because it's kind of acting like it's gonna rocket all the way back down there. But I don't see why that would actually happen. This may just be post meta order impact. And if I go short right here, I might be stuck. But it does look like I might have been able to. It's my positions windows all screwed up. Let me add it back in here. A 935. Nah, still not the 10. Okay. Anyways, places like Axia, there used to be prop shops, a lot of prop shops, like in the 90s, essentially. And the market kind of changed and they all went the way of the dinosaur. And these guys like SMB and Axia are kind of the last remnants of that, right? So you have to realize that although they may be making money, you have to realize that their line of business basically disappeared for a reason, right? A lot of what the prop shops were making money off of got taken over by the robots, especially. And that has kind of left them with making money primarily on the informational inefficiencies, which is hard and inconsistent, but that's what we do. That's what we do, right? So it just kind of comes down to like temper your expectations, right? Because I think that a person wants to come in and say, oh, okay, Axia, like they do have some traders. They do have traders at Axia that make money. They do. Okay. But I think that people think, oh, okay, I'm going to go and take their course and now I'm going to understand the markets and I'll always make money. No, it doesn't work that way. Right. Quant trading can still be possible for retail? Well, so the thing is if you're going to do quant trading, you're going to have to be real smart. Yeah. I'm still thinking about if I should have changed anything or if there was like something that came in and caused that move back up that I missed out on, but I'm not seeing it. I think that there is some spreading going on, like there's some steepening. So what I'm seeing is like the 30-year sold really hard on the down move and the 10-year bought really hard on the up move. The 5-year was not as involved on that up move. They were engaged in the 5-year on the earlier move today. So all of that movement may have just been spreading. I typically don't do a whole lot about journaling the trades. Like, everything gets recorded automatically, so I don't have to do a whole lot to say things. And it's all recorded here. So if I really want to go back and look at what, something happened or what I did, I can just watch the video, right? This move. So if I can go back, because I have to realize that some of you guys are newer and don't necessarily understand what I'm talking about. When you have a large meta order pushing down, it tends to leave a wake behind it. So, where's my freaking pen? It's here somewhere. Where are you? Exit pen and restart it, maybe. There it is. Okay. So when you get a large meta order moving down like this, okay, it leaves a wake behind it. Just think about like the wake behind all of these candles right here. So the liquidity in this area is going to be weaker, which is what causes the market to fold back on itself. Okay. Now, typically what will happen is you get a large meta order and then they'll kind of reach the extent of their impact and then the market will kind of quiet down. It'll come back a little bit and it will quiet down. So that kind of will cause your typical like sort of a thing. That's what I was looking to happen, right? When I saw this, that was like a big red flag to me that said, oh, if there's an opposing meta order that's going to push things back the other way, it's likely that this opposing meta order, pushes market beyond where the original meta order started at, right? So when I saw that, I'm like, that's potentially what's going on here. I want to get out. And I was just not as aggressive on it as I should be. But this is the big weakness to the way that we trade, right? That when we have a large meta order, we are vulnerable to somebody stepping in and pushing the market completely back the other way. So you want to sit down and say it should trend, it should just keep going my way, it should keep going my way. But a very large portion of the time it will completely retrace. So you kind of do need to be able to see this down here. We did see that. I just didn't get off on it. I just wasn't Like, what is the word? You know, I was too chill. I was way too chill about it. And I got caught. Missed out on a good winner. So, for you new guys, that's something to pay attention to. Now, look, there's some, like, do we continue to see, like, bids below us and all that sort of a thing? So, find a NAMI meeting in Lower Manhattan and you might find a quant or a market genius. What if everyone thinks they're that genius, though? Then you know you're in a bull market. Feds, Brainerd noting signs of illiquidity kind of signals them thinking about a retracement. Yeah, it could be. I mean, we did remember when I came in here this morning, my initial thought was that we were going to see some buying, right? And that's just not how it played out. And so when I saw the order flow pushing to the downside, I took the downside trade. Now that we've had the down and back up, I'm not too sure. Like, I don't know if there's really enough buying out there to push us to like new highs. Could happen. Syndication of new conventional gilts maturing in 2038 is now scheduled to take place in the week beginning November 7th. I don't know what that's about. Wartang, we are committed to determining what happened in the long-dated gilt market. It could be like headlines coming from the IMF and stuff pushing us. Although I did not see any like clear headlines like a move, like a headline-driven move. It was kind of a slow mover. And as we're seeing all of this, there is large icebergs still transacting. We didn't see that on the way down, but we are seeing that on the way up. So there are some people fighting this long. It looks like that the longs, there's more than enough longs to push through them for now, but that kind of gives me a little bit of pause, especially with 30 minutes left, that I probably don't want to take another trade today. Now on that trade, the one thing that I did do that was good was that there was, because I didn't get the best entry, but it did push against me a couple of times and I was able to stick with the trade until I got the real thing to come through. So holding it through the heat, that was good. So the P&L for the day is -3. That was the only trade I took. So that's why I'm at, because yesterday I lost 18, right? So I wanted to come in here. Not that you can do anything with it, but I lost 18 yesterday. So for me to come in and get 34 ticks favorable, that was like, okay, that wiped out yesterday's and gave me a profit. So that's why I was like totally willing to take 34. I just wasn't able to get it. Wasn't able to get out. Market moved too fast. So that's why I'm so frustrated. I guess it gives me a little bit of confidence, because yesterday I was kind of starting to be like, this, you know, I was really on in August. September and October haven't been as good. September and October have been bits and bouts of good and bad. And then, you know, I caught today. I was like, yeah, no, we're okay. I think what we're doing is we're still in a pretty good deal for the market, but it came back so fast. I knew that was happening there, though. I need to be more cautious about that. I think that one of the things I've been doing is I've been trying to let them run, because we have had some really strong runners in this market, right? But because I know that that's a vulnerability, I really should be a little bit more focused on taking the profit. You've blown over 7 accounts already. I'm going to get Jigsaw for sure. Oh, I think that Jigsaw is a great tool. Just when I need to come up with like a better messaging here, because I don't feel like that it's clear in the branding of the channel, right? Order flow is only part of a complete strategy. What the real edge is knowing what's going on, knowing the news, and knowing the things that could be driving order flow that day. That's the real edge, right? I get concerned when I see people, they've probably been trading all these chart patterns and all this sort of thing, and then they say, okay, order flow is the thing. Order flow is the thing that's going to get me to make money, right? Well, what's going to happen is you're going to approach order flow with the eye of technical analysis, and you're going to make the same mistakes that causes traditional technical analysis to fail. You need to start studying the market and understand what's going on, and watch the order flow in conjunction with that so that you understand why it's moving. How do you play at this level you do, and why are you comfortable trading so small? Well, so I have a day job, right? So it's not an issue of the money for me, right? And to be honest, coming in and losing 500, because I've done that many times, where I lost $500 in a day, really stresses me out. It really stresses me out. So when I had my first child, and it was the day so this was like 2 years ago, right? I think that was the one that bothered me the most, and the one that I remember, because you have a tendency to forget your big losers, okay? But there was this one day where I took a bunch of trades that I shouldn't have, and so it was bad, and I lost like 500. I'm not sure if that blew an account or not, but when I lose 500, that's not supposed to happen. And I had to go in to see the baby ultrasound. So here was like it's supposed to be one of the best times of your life to see your firstborn child in the ultrasound for the first time. And I was upset because I had lost $500 that day, right? That was the first time where I kind of started to say that this is like, there needs to be a different approach to the risk that I'm taking on, right? And so I turned to, I really want to just take as little risk as possible. So when the micro treasury yield futures came out, I started trading those, and I said, we'll just do it with one contract. And you know what? To be honest with you, a very large portion of the time, it's break even after all the fees. Like, that's what I've been doing since this account. I started this account with $1,500, and the account is still at $1,500, almost exactly. Actually, now it's like $1,497, something like that. But and that's after paying for all of the fees and the data fees. So I've actually made 3 months now. I've actually made like 150 net, which is not bad for micro contracts, right? Probably, if I was trading like a 5 lot, I'd probably be feeling really good about my trading right now. But I've made a conscious effort to take on as little risk as possible, and to just trade the small account, because for me, it's not necessarily about how much money I'm making from it. I mean, sure, there's things that I would like to do that if I had more money, I would do them. But you know what? For instance, it would be nice to have a pool. I think I'd have to move somewhere else to have a pool, but it would be nice to have a pool, wouldn't it? Okay, but if I could go out right now and I could take out some debt and have a pool, and it wouldn't really be a huge strain on my finances. I would still be fine. But you know what I would lose if I did that? I would lose the opportunity to grind and be able to reward my efforts with a pool. You see what I mean? The problem that the richest people have is that, like, they've already made it. They've done the big struggle, and they made the big play or whatever. And now they don't have anything to drive them anymore. What's the point of it all at that point? When you're on top, right? And you have your own sex cult and all this kind of nonsense, right? So it's much more effective for my own personal development to give myself these really hard restrictions, to come in and say, we're only going to trade one contract until we have a bunch saved up to add a second contract, and we're going to be the strictest, and we're going to take on the smallest amount of risk and build the account from the smallest thing possible, right? That's a challenge. Because the real goal here is to get as good at trading as possible, not necessarily to make the most money as possible. If the goal was to make the most money possible, I would like probably be going into like venture capital or something like that, right? Okay, this upside that we're getting here is getting a little bit more crazy. So when we were at 08, I think it was when we were at 3.925 was the last time that I kind of took inventory. I wasn't sure if it was going to go. It did go. $15. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but trading is the only thing that calms my mind and gives me peace. Most everything else makes me angry. Well, when I'm trading and I'm winning, it feel like that. But when I'm not winning, it can cause me real grief, man. You thought we would retest the top here? I'm a little surprised that we had such a strong pushback. I feel like I must have missed something. There must have been something the IMF said that I wasn't paying attention and missed. Tulsi Gabbard is no longer a Democrat. That's interesting. Not just when winning, just putting in orders and getting fills and taking off positions. Well, I mean, the question here at this point is, could we continue to see some upside movement? I mean, there's enough autocorrelation in all of that it's very, very possible to see more coming out of it. But since I don't really know what's driving the order flow, it's really difficult for me to try and make a determination like that, right? On the downside, you know, I wasn't necessarily looking for it to trend all day. That's why I was trying to get the exit. Really wasn't expecting the pushback. Really. Hey, NASDAQ killer. Haven't seen you in a few days. Glad to see you again. Yeah, I can. So like the thing that when I'm trading that really makes me know that like I need to step back is like that heavy feeling. Like just thinking about it here makes me feel unhappy. It's like that stress that comes over you, like you've done something bad. Like that's the thing that drives me crazy about it, is if I take a loss or I take a big loss, I feel like I've done something morally wrong. You know what I mean? Like the feeling that I get would be like the kind of feeling that I would expect to feel if like I had stolen something and gotten caught or something like that. You know what I mean? Don't, you know. So I definitely do not think it's the case that I just sit here and I'm completely stress free about it, right? Because I want to run this account for as long as possible. And well, I have definitely been trading really well this past year, and it's been some of my best trading. You know, I'm still like break even on this account. after paying for commission, after paying for data fees, unfortunately, is really what caused that. Otherwise that's like 10% in a few months. That's really good. Right? But and we've been in a market where the bonds have really been moving, so I can't expect to do that well every year, right? And the gist of it is basically that what I am trying to do is incredibly difficult. Probably be easier to just go into the S&P 500, trade with the trend, and just try and hold a really big stop, right? try and trade with the trend in areas where I'm seeing some mean reversion or ranging behavior, and have a really big stop. If I really wanted to, now I'd probably blow up eventually, and then I would just, So that's why I take the tack that's like, listen, what we're doing right here, this will scale, right? We could turn this into a fund someday if we wanted to. I think that's important. But I think that there's this bigger thing that I'm trying to get at here for you guys, and that is that what happens to most traders is you come in and you say, I want to be a millionaire. How can I become a millionaire? Well, you can become a millionaire from trading. There's all these people, or at the very least, I can make a living from trading and not have to work a regular job. So you come in and you trade it and you say, I'm going to figure out the market. There's these patterns and I'm going to be the smart person that figures it out. And then you start trading, and at first you don't do so well. And people that really hurts your ego. But you say, well, I am a person with perseverance. I'm going to keep pushing through it, right? And so to save your ego, and to allow yourself to continue pushing, you basically, what you start to do is you avoid losses by giving yourself really, really big stops and trying to trade in these ranges. And so you end up making money from taking on excessive risk, right? To save your ego. And then at some point, the fat tail comes, you blow your account, and you've been sparing your ego all this time, right? So now when you take the loss, this is devastating because you've been saving it for so long, and now all of that grief all comes and hits you all at once, like two years worth of having to, deal with occasional losses and everything. It all just hits you in one day and you blow the account. And that really destroys your perception of yourself, because I'm supposed to be the one I was disciplined and I figured the market out and I was smart, and now you blew the account. Am I a fraud? Etc., 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 right? But if you take a different approach, right, which is, number one, I'm not here to figure the market out per se. Nobody can do that, because the whole point of a market is having multiple participants, because there's no other way to correlate all of that information together, right? So I can only know a limited amount. I can only come in and trade on what I know and look for opportunities where I have an advantage, or I think I have an advantage, and acknowledge that I don't always know it all, and that I don't have to come in and smack it out of the park. That I can just come in here and enjoy doing it and be able to keep doing it, because I'm not blowing the account, right? And how I feel about myself, or where I am in life, or who I am, has absolutely nothing to do with how much I'm making from the trading. If I hit it big and I do really well with the trading, then great. And if I just, break even, that's great too, as long as I'm doing the thing that I want to do. Because as soon as you start to attach your self-worth to your performance, then when you stop performing, it completely destroys your ego, And that makes it difficult to keep performing, right? This is where you'll get into this cycle where one loss will continually harm you and until you just blow it, right? And I did that too. And it wasn't until I said, that, we just need to be humble and just be grateful for the opportunity to come in here and trade it, right? Now, that doesn't mean that I don't care about the performance, right? Because the objective is to be the greatest trader we can be. So if I come in and I have a trade come all the way back on me and I should have been more aggressive at exiting that trade like what happened today, then of course I'm going to harp on myself and I'm going to try and figure out ways to help me do better on that sort of a situation, right? But it's not, you see, it doesn't hurt my ego. That's why you might think, looking from here, how do you do this? How do you come and trade in front of other people and not get emotional about it? It's because I understand that that the trading performance is not a reflection of me as a person or my value or worth. You see what I mean? And I feel that kind of a change is kind of necessary to some extent in order to have long-term success. Because the way that trading is, the way that the current market is, there might have been this time where you could have come in and you could have used these market making strategies and you just win all the time and you figured it out and you made the money and you became big at it and everything, right? But now we're left primarily with the informational inefficiency, and that can be inconsistent sometimes, right? And so you have to be able to adapt a mindset that can deal with that, and where you can have periods where you don't do well, right? And that you don't have to come in and make money every day or every week. And you can come in and have a week that's not very, very good and not have it destroy you emotionally. It's very helpful to be a well-grounded, emotionally stable individual, which appears you are. Well, but I'm not. You remember that whole discussion about ADHD, man? When I come in, when we took that trade originally, and I didn't like the way that my entry went, and I didn't like they were going 10 ticks against me, I was super mad about it, okay? Now I'm on Adderall right now, so I don't really show it very, very well. I'm able to kind of just keep my composure, but I was super upset about it, man. I was feeling quite tilted. I was feeling quite tilted. I can be quite an emotional person, and especially when I'm not on Adderall, I can, if I'm frustrated, I will have outbursts. Like, that's the thing that I think will hurt you the most as a person with ADHD, is this outward showing of emotion that is deemed socially inappropriate. That's the sort of thing that will cause people more than anything to be like, I don't know if I want to be around this guy, right? And I've done that on stream before too. So it's not that I'm able to sit here and keep my composure. It's that I understand that that's the way that the thing goes, and that it means nothing about me as a person, right? That allows me to come in and have a losing day, or even have a day where I lose my composure, and then come back and forget about it and ignore that it ever happened, because I just know, well, that's just me, and that just is the nature of what we're doing, and we're going to continue to come in and try and become the best traders we can. Yeah. That's to me, that's the mental side of it, right? And then getting yourself into the situation where you can make the best decisions possible, right? And that side of that for me is that I research the market. I'm confident. I read every comment that comes out of the Federal Reserve. So when somebody else comes out and says something about the state of the market that I know is untrue, I'm confident about it. Like, I know my thing. So I can come in here and take a trade on a thesis that I believe in and do so confidently without having to play all of the head games. Why? Because I'm basing my trade on something that is predictive of the order flows. And if it wasn't predictive of the order flow that day, I missed something, then you can't know everything, right? You compare this to the way that you have to take it with the technical analysis side, especially when you're trying to do it like discretionary. It's like if you have all of your mental stuff right and you trade it, and you should be making money because you have an edge from this technical thing. And then when it's not working, what's wrong? Is there something wrong with my psychology? Am I like self-sabotaging? Is my childhood preventing me from being able to trade effectively? You have to play all of these head games, right? Because you don't actually know why you're not having success. You don't know if it's that you're not reading the action correctly. You don't know if you're in a bad emotional set, or the one that nobody ever, it seems to consider, but is the most likely option here, is that the thing that you're trading off of just doesn't have an edge, right? And when you're coming in here and you're trying to trade that edge that may or may not exist every single day, that's going to mess with your head, right? Compared to, I know something, I know a fact, and I think that fact is going to lead to more orders today. And if it doesn't lead to more orders today, that's okay, because there's going to be another situation tomorrow and I can make a call on that. And my performance is going to be directly tied to how well I read that particular market. And so my edge, whether I have edge or not, is completely dependent on that day. And I know that I'm not going to have edge every day, right? So all I can focus on doing well is knowing as much as I can about the markets, being able to read the order flow and understand what I'm seeing. And that's it. And I don't have to play all those head games, because everything that I'm looking at that I have to worry about, all of the things that I have to worry about, are things that I can empirically prove, and that I know what I can do to do better at it. I didn't spend enough time reading the market news. I didn't pay enough attention to my news squawk, or there was a Twitter story that I missed. I underestimated this particular flow. I knew that there was a possibility of a counter trade, and I wasn't aggressive enough at taking my profit based on what I was seeing in the order flow, right? There's no, of course it's still discretionary, but I know what I have to do, right? TA has a statistical, it's possible. It's possible that it has a statistical edge, but like 99% of the time, it doesn't. The biggest issue in TA though is the fooled by randomness issue, right? That we think that there is a statistical edge in it, and it's really a case of not having enough data or knowing enough about statistics to understand why the data that I'm looking at is actually just random. It's easy then just hire an edgy teenager to be your mentor and teach you edge. Anyways, point of that, I gotta get going. Point of that was developing a mental edge is much easier when you're trading news than it is trying to trade technical analysis. So I gotta get going. I don't know what to put in today's title. Treasury reversal. I'm just gonna put Treasuries reversal because that's what I would want to be searching for. It's like, oh, there's a day that had a reversal. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, Stay excellent, team. Yeah.